So let's play a game. So Major League Baseball calls you up one day, says, "Hey, Trevor, we need your help making the game popular, cool for young people again." What do you actually do? How do you actually think of that plan?
First off, figure out where the young people are because you have to deliver content to people where they are these days. They're not going to tune into a separate platform to get content. There's so much of it online and it's so easy to access that people are on TikTok or they're on Instagram. They're not really going to be on both of those and then go to the MLB app and then go to the ESPN app or whatever. So figure out where they are and figure out how to deliver content specific to that platform to them there. Um, that's the first thing. And then the second thing is you got to give people, young people especially, a reason to be inspired, a way to identify with the people that they're watching. I grew up, I was going to Dodger games and I would look out on the field and these guys are superstars, right? And it's like, wow, it's like this inspiring moment, but they didn't feel like real in a sense. They almost felt like aliens because it's like I had no context by which I had any sort of way to see myself in them, other than that I just happened to play baseball. But if I had known that what I know now, which is like as soon as I got into pro ball, guys are they eat the same things, they talk about the same things, they wear the same shoes, they're humans, they put their pants on the same way everyone else does. Had I had a little bit of context to that, uh, it would have made it a lot easier for me to aspire to be them because I could see myself in them. So that's the next thing. And then it's off-field content. There's so much on-field content already, but that's kind of where it stops. So when the game ends, you lose a little bit of the audience until the next game. And baseball's unique in the sense that we play every single day for 6 months or 7 months or whatever. But NBA does a great job of off-field stuff. They have fashion, they have culture, they have business dealings, they have entertainment. They're like really well integrated into that space. I think MMA is like the gold standard here. Obviously, it's an individual sport, so you can spend more time kind of developing your personalities and your characters because that's how you sell fights. You get, people love one guy and then hate the other guy and they want to see him fight. But you can do a lot of that in baseball too. Get players in street clothes, build up their personalities. There's so many electric personalities that I'm with in the clubhouse that just no one knows about. I'm like, man, if the public would just see, like, dude, can you just make the Snapchat videos you send me every night public? You'd be a star. But that's not really the culture right now. The culture is kind of, if you do anything else, if you post on your Instagram a lot, if you're on Twitter a lot, you're not focused on your job. And that's unfortunate. So those are some of the places I'd start. There's a lot more things that I would do, but you got to deliver the content to where people are. You got to figure out how to give the young people a way to identify with the players, and then you need to promote individual personalities, not just the team.
Awesome. How about changes to the actual game? Maybe a pitching clock, 15 seconds, you get the ball back from the catcher and you got to go. I mean, that's one of my worries about baseball is just the slowness of it all. A game takes 2 hours, 45 minutes. You're sort of sitting there. It doesn't have this back and forth. And it seems to me that sort of speed really helps with keeping the game fresh and alive for people. But just because internet digital speed is very different. There's not a lot of downtime. And if you look at esports and you're just sitting watching someone play a video game, it's
Yeah.
and that's the sort of cadence and the rhythm that young people are accustomed to.
Yeah, I think the attention spans in general in society have shrunk quite drastically. Social media has certainly helped usher in that era. It's all, if I click on something, it doesn't load in a second or two, I'm on to the next thing. So I certainly agree that upping the pace of the game would help. Now, how to do that is a little, that's, I guess, the question, right? I think music in between pitches, some sort of like entertainment in the stadium going on during the game to make the stadium a destination for fans to come back to. If you have live performers like a DJ kind of doing the game, obviously whenever the pitcher like steps on the mound to get the sign and get ready to pitch, cut it off, something like that. But have some sort of different themed nights that you're playing music in between pitches. I think that'd be one way to make it feel faster paced and more entertaining in person. I think there's some stuff you can do with VR cameras to I guess again in person, but also at home. You set up. So there's a technology I saw in Japan where they can actually take a pitch's metric. So it's thrown, and within a couple seconds, they can, as long as they have the pitcher themselves digitized, they can flip it and have someone stand in the box and see the exact pitch coming in that was just thrown. So you could have a station or a couple places uh, throughout the stadium where people could come in and like do that in between pitches, like, oh, what was that? And they'd be in line, like they're watching the game, they like step in the box. So they're have a little bit of a break from just sitting in the stands watching the game to actually experiencing what it's like at shortstop, what it's like when the pitcher just got hit for a big home run. Like, what did that look like from the hitter's perspective? Stuff like that. Similarly, at home, you can put 360 VR cameras at different places where people could tune into different uh, feeds as they're watching the game. The majority of people now are watching the game at home, not coming to the stadium because the fan experience at home is so good. The broadcasts are so good. The clarity is so good. And it's way cheaper. Going to a game is expensive. A family of four goes to a game. It's hard to get to a game for under 180, $200 with a family of four. And that's just including tickets and parking and not a whole lot of, not much like food or anything at the game. So doing stuff there where you have unique camera angles where in between pitches you can flip and say, oh, I wonder what so-and-so's doing in the dugout. And you have a camera there where you can like look around the dugout if you have a VR headset. Some stuff like that. I'm generally against changing the rules of the game because as a competitor, I think the product itself is the best it's ever been right now. I think the players are the most athletic, they're the most talented, it's the fastest. Like not the speed at which the game is played, but when the ball's actually in play, it's the fastest. It's the fastest game that has been. And so, like people talk about it with the shift all the time. Oh well, if you got rid of the shift, it would create more hits and it would create more action. I'm like, my thought is that hitters should adapt and create a new skill set by which they can beat the shift and compensate for it, because ultimately I think that raises the level of ability in the game. And I could be wrong in this, but I think people want to see the best players with the best ability level. Otherwise, they would watch an entertaining minor league game over a big league game. And while that may be true locally, you might go to your local minor league stadium to watch a game because it's most accessible and it's cheaper. I don't see people tuning in to watch minor league broadcasts. I think they tune in to see the best of the best. So anything that raises the skill level in the league, I think is beneficial. So those are some of the things. I don't think a pitch clock. I'm not much a fan of that in the sense that uh, there's a certain cadence and a certain rhythm that you get into when you're like locked in and focused on something with your catcher that I think it would be a little bit distracting in some ways. Now, certainly there's pitchers that take 45 seconds or a minute, but like Yu Darvish, I think was the pitcher that took the most time in between pitches this year, but he finished second in the Cy Young Award and he was excellent. So do you want to penalize, if that's his cadence and rhythm that works best for him, do you want to penalize him by putting him on? Because so what are people tuning in to see? Him throw pitches in a rapid fashion, or they tune in to see him strike a bunch of people out and be nasty? And so I guess it depends on what you think people are watching and how you want the product to develop. I think
Yeah.
artificially limiting the product.
One
Like,
of the things that I really wish that you would get from baseball was more personality in the way that the fields are designed. I grew up going to Oakland A's games and I grew up going to San Francisco Giants games. And the Giants stadium was so much cooler, right? You got 421 yards out in the right field corner. Then you have 309 to hardcore right field right down the line. And so Barry Bonds would just rip them, pull them down the line and hit them into McCovey Cove. Then there'd be a whole series of things that would happen when the ball went into McCovey Cove. Then the right field sort of angles and it's bricks. So you get these weird bounces. Then you go to Wrigley, you got the Ivy in the outfield. You go to Fenway, you have the Green Monster out in left field. Like, these stadiums have so much personality. And then on the other side of the bay, you had Oakland A's, which was fully symmetrical, wasn't that exciting. And one thing that I would love to see from ballpark designers is make the fields cool. Like, it seems simple to me, but it's almost like a thing of once you get a lot of people who are designing something, people can't really agree. The simple field is just I don't know, I guess kind of easiest to agree upon. But if it's one person who's just trying to have fun, trying to make, I mean, this is an entertaining product. That's the goal of creating baseball. Make the fields cool, you know?
Yeah, I can see that. There's so like the ivy and the brick. From a player safety standpoint, I'll play devil's advocate here. Having players run into the wall can be a little bit tough on those harder surfaces. So again, it kind of comes down to, are you there more to see the entertainment of the ballpark, the funny bounces, different stuff, or is seeing someone rob a home run at some point
Hmm.
like equally as entertaining? Because the more creative you make the field, the harder it is for players to adjust as they go on the road. So the less opportunities you have to interact with the wall, interact and with a home run, stuff like that. So just to play devil's advocate a little bit, but I certainly like the idea of making the surrounding features of the field interesting. Like the thing that stands out about San Francisco's park to me is, I mean, there's a lot, but there's the huge, the glove and the Coke bottle and some of these elements. And then like you say, you go to a place like Oakland and it's like, well, I mean, I get it's a football stadium and this and that, but there's nothing that like, as far as the entertainment in person for the fan and just the visual of it, uh, there's nothing really like that. So definitely agree on that side. Unfortunately, stadiums are around for like 30, 40 years and don't change over a whole lot. So once you get one, the novelty of it wears off somewhat quickly relative to the lifespan of the stadium itself. But I mean, like playing in Atlanta, their new stadium, it's awesome. And some of the areas around it, building up, I love stadiums that are kind of open in the outfield or have some sort of visual out and they have a skyline behind or they have some sort of like hotels or they have something back there because it gives
Pittsburgh.
it a super visual, like it's super appealing visually. So um, yeah, I see that. Uh, I think that's something that could be done. It kind of goes back to the in-person experience for the fan. I'm big on finding a way to get fans back to the stadium, making it cheaper to get fans there, making it more accessible to them because ultimately I had so many good experiences with my dad going to games. Um, and the other experiences we had were listening on the radio, and no one listens on the radio anymore. So it's a little bit different now when you're on your phone streaming, uh, and it kind of breaks that in-person type of feel of being at a baseball game.
Yeah, I remember so distinctly every year we would go to Yosemite National Park as a family, and then my dad would organize a big trip. And it was always first week of October. So it was always, early playoffs. And I so distinctly remember right by the river in the middle of the park was the only place where you could get a radio signal. And what we did was we took the antenna on the car. My dad drove an old station wagon. This thing was ancient. Then we put a clothes hanger on the top of the car. And every year we did it because that was the only place in Yosemite where we could listen to the game. And, Mike Krukow, Dwayne Kuiper, longtime Giants announcers. It was epic. But the question that I want to ask you is, growing up, one of my favorite books was called The Physics of Baseball, 160 pages. And I didn't like physics at all. But what happened was once I got into physics of baseball, all physics just lit up. The way that the ball curves, the way that spin rates work with speed, that work with atmosphere, stuff like that. Fascinating. And I think that in some way, if we want a more numerical society, which I think is on net very good, how can we teach people through the game of baseball? Maybe use TrackMan, maybe talk about some of the stuff that you were talking about earlier with that Japanese technology of having all the numerical speed, spin rates, all that sort of stuff, and actually have kids revel in the mathematical beauty of this sport.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. Something that I was really impressed with over in Japan when I was there last offseason is they're huge on the education surrounding the data. But their culture, their fans want to know more about it. Here, I think one of the biggest things that I hate about the current game is the kind of old school baseball people that talk down on the current game. I don't know how you're supposed to have interest from a young fan when they tune into a baseball game and the announcer's like, well, back in my day, we hit behind the runner and we played baseball and these guys just strike out too much. It's like, okay, now I'm not interested in the product. Same thing with analytics. It happens all the time. It's like, oh, these new spin rate guys and launch angle swings and they this and that, and it's bad for the game. It just go on and on and on because it's not their baseball that they remember. And so I think it kills fan interest, and then it also kills, the interest in being educated about the numbers. So I think we've done a terrible job as an industry as far as educating the public and the fans about what they mean, how they're beneficial, why they should care, and what's exceptional and what's not. Half the time, you're showing slow motion video on a broadcast and the announcer has absolutely no idea. He's never looked at slow motion video, has no idea. He's like trying to talk his way through it and can't deliver a clear message. So how do you educate your fan base to care about something that's integral to the game right now and will be forever after this point, without having your announcers, your spokesperson, your salespeople in a way know the product well. So I think that's a huge disconnect. There's certainly some good ones out there, and it's really refreshing when you hear them and call a game because you're like, wow, that's actually valid insight. That like they're educating the public while they're it's a very unique skill set how you can weave in education with entertainment, but it's certainly possible. And I had the same type of experience. I was ninth grade. I didn't know anything really about physics or anything like that. I took an AP physics class with a man named Martin Kirby, and he was talking about how, if you like, he made class fun instead of like, if you drop an object off a cliff, it's like, if a baby falls from 2 feet, how high would the baby bounce? And just little things like that that appeal to ninth graders, and we think it's funny, right? But all the lessons that I learned about Newtonian physics, I saw, I'm like, oh, wow, a particle or like an object traveling through the air, like I can figure out the launch speed if I know the distance. And I was like, oh, I can apply that to long toss, or, oh, I can apply, torques and stuff like that to my pitching delivery. And so I started trying to apply physics, and that's really what launched my whole like scientific method driven uh, research and development project on myself for the next, I mean, it's been, because I was 14 at the time, so more than half my life that I've been doing it. But that one class, that one education technique that he used to just make physics fun, like completely changed my baseball career. And I think that that's something that should be and can be applied to the larger fan base if you find ways to weave education and entertainment together.
Yeah, golf does a really good job of some of the things that you've just said. Golf, you watch, and some of the announcers are lunatics when they look at slow motion video, but it's actually gotten a lot better. And I played college golf. I, for a while, managed believe it or not, the world's largest collection of slow motion golf swings. I would travel the country, I'd take videos, and I would study those. And then when I was in high school, my junior senior year, I was working with one of the top golf instructors in the country. And so we were, taking Titleist Performance Institute ideas, and then we were throwing force plates on ourselves. We're standing on force plates. We were wearing all those computers, and then it was called a K vest. That's what it was called. And so it would go on your one sort of around your waist, another on your chest, and then you could see exactly.
Baseball.
Same thing in baseball, right?
Yeah, I know what K-Vest is. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you get to see all this, and what was really cool was when there were things that were really counterintuitive that in retrospect are just totally obvious, right? So to take an idea from your world, people always talk about, okay, the arm should speed up and accelerate before your foot hits the ground. No, your foot has to hit the ground. Once it does, you actually have the body can move, and it has the force that it needs to basically, you go from ground to shoulder, I guess it would be, and then the shoulder can accelerate. Things like that are either counterintuitive, or once you get it, you're just like, of course it works like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so many of those in in pitching, in the delivery. There's so much bad information out there about it in the first place that you need to have a long arm, or you got to throw with your legs, or like all these bad like teaches. And like what do those mean first off? And then no, those are just actually wrong. A lot of people, one easy one. There's two that I'll talk about. Talk about release point. People think that you release the ball. You don't actually release the ball. The ball flies out of your hand due to inertia at the point in which the arc of your arm is changing directions. And of course that would be the case, because that's when the forces are the greatest, right? If you have a lever swinging out around here, the ball's going to eject as come around, because at some point the inertia of the ball overcomes the finger strength and the ball projects to the plate. But it seems like semantics in a way, but it's not, because if you think of a release point, you're thinking of actually having to do something to like release the ball. Whereas if you think of it as an ejection point, then you just set your grip and you're like, oh, it's going to eject at some point, and you throw it. And that's actually the most efficient way for your body to stay healthy and to make this ball spin the way you want it to, is to not attempt to do anything at the end, just set your wrist and lock the grip in and then just throw. Similarly with release point, they're like, oh, you got to keep your release point the same so the hitters can't see it. But no one stops to think that the hand's moving, the fastest, like this is the fastest occurrence in all of sports, is like how fast the arm is unwinding in a pitch. The rotational, the rotational accelerations and speeds and stuff like that are ridiculous. There's no way. I mean, humans see in about 30 frames per second. Uh, you know, from an eyesight standpoint, there's no way to see what the actual release point is. So we don't have a ton of good ways to measure these things yet, but some of the initial studies are like, well, hitters can't see within like a 3 ball width. They can't tell the difference between like 3 ball widths, like in any direction. So now do you have to have your release point be exactly the same for each pitch? Why don't you sculpt your release point within that window to optimize for the pitch movement, because hitters can't see it anyway? And you think about it that way, you're like, well, of course they can. It happens way too fast. But everyone thinks they're still chasing this like, oh, make your release point exactly the same. So there's, I mean, baseball is littered with, things that kind of make sense when you don't have the full understanding, but now with technology being able to measure things, we know them to be objectively false.
Dude, the very pissed offness that you have with baseball being archaic, with it not being numerical, the level to which you are pissed off with that is also the level to which you have an advantage in what you do.
Yeah, I think so. Less so as time goes forward, because more and more people are becoming initiated. I mean, it was 2013, or I think it's 2014 that I purchased an Edgertronic camera. 2012 or 13, I was the first person with a portable TrackMan unit to measure some of this stuff. So I had a huge early mover advantage at that time, because I'd been studying slow motion footage for 5 years before anyone else knew the thing existed. So I'd already figured out all the different, I guess, control points for how to shape a pitch, how to design a pitch. I'd already designed 2 or 3 pitches in a lab that I'd added to my arsenal and used in a game by the time some people were even seeing Edgertronic footage, slow motion footage for the first time.
Talk about that. How do you design a pitch in a lab?
So it goes, everything that I do, pretty much everything I do in life goes back to my engineering process, my problem solving process, which is identify where you are, be a good self-evaluator, be honest with yourself, know exactly where you are, and then design out in your head exactly where you want to be, to like the littlest detail. And then you have your endpoints. So now you just create a process and you go, okay, well, I'm here and I need to get there on this skill set. So how do I like wind my way up there? Well, I need to improve on this metric, or I need to improve on that metric, or I need to, so you can design a process and then you iterate. So it's, where are you now? Where do you want to be? Design a process, iterate the process. And so when I look at a pitch, I say, okay, what does my arsenal need? Well, I have a breaking ball that generates a lot of swing and misses, but I can't throw it for a strike very often, so I'm behind the count. So I need to throw something for a strike that's not a fastball, but something that's a breaking ball that I can easily throw for a strike. Well, okay, if I'm going to do that, I probably need to minimize the overall movement of it, because the more the ball moves, the harder it is to control. So I need something that basically just spins like a football. It's called a gyroball, it's just gyro slider. That I can just throw and it goes straight and it just drops with gravity. Looks kind of like a fastball. And okay, so now I know exactly what the pitch is that I want, that fits in my arsenal. Well, what does that look like? How fast does it spin? What's the spin axis? Okay, I throw 95 and my curveball is 78. So I need something kind of in the middle speed wise, so that there's some deception there. They can't just sit on one speed or the other. They have to deal with 3 speeds. So in the middle of 95 and 78 is 87, 86 to 88, somewhere in that range, right? So like, okay, I know that's the speed. Now let me look at the pitches all around the league and who has the best gyro slider. How fast does it spin? Is it slow spinning? Is it fast spinning? Well, that one tends to perform better if it spins faster. So the top end of that category is like 25, 2600 about. If you go over that, it's super elite. So that's my goal. I'm shooting for a gyro slider with like football spin, basically from a direction standpoint at 86 to 88 with 2600 spin rate. Okay, now if I can measure what I throw, pitch to pitch, I can try this, I can try that, I can try the other until I replicate something that's close. Okay, let me drill that in. Okay, now how do I high grade it now? And so then that's the iteration of the process, getting close. So I did that with my gyro slider. I did that with my sweeping slider. I did that with my two seam. I've attempted to do it with my changeup for multiple years, although that's the one that I think because of some of the adaptations that have happened to my shoulder over the course of throwing for an entire lifetime, I just personally anatomically I struggle to do the changeup.
Why?
But
Explain that. Wouldn't a changeup just be like explain the shoulder point, but also explain the nuance of the changeup? For me, I just see a changeup as something that goes slower, whereas I see a slider. When I think of slider, I think of some lateral curve.
right. So to start with the first one, anatomically speaking, the more you throw, the more your shoulder adapts to what it's being asked to do. So I go into external rotation a lot. So I have a ton of layback in my right shoulder. I can externally rotate my right shoulder a long ways. I can't externally rotate my left shoulder nearly as far. And a lot of that is because just over the years of throwing, my the bone structure will actually slowly kind of it's called like retroversion of the shoulder. So it'll actually morph to allow for the range of movement that you're forcing. So you're like basically the simplest terms, your body adapts to the stimulus that you give it. So the external rotation is tied to the supination direction of the forearm, which is basically like if you have your hands kind of out in front of you and you turn your hand to face the sky, that's the supination direction of the forearm. So that is also tied in with breaking balls because your hand has to be kind of like supinated to be able to throw a breaking ball, whereas a changeup is tied to pronation, which is tied also to internal rotation of the shoulder. So I'm very good at externally rotating and supinating because that's what I've done my entire life. I've never really like done a ton of pronation or internal rotation. So I have very limited internal rotation, structurally speaking, on my right shoulder relative to my left, but I have a lot more external rotation. On a changeup, in order to, and this will lead into the second point on it, in order to make a changeup good, it needs to be slower for sure. You would think it's not actually true. The movement profile of the changeups is actually the biggest thing. So if you look at someone like Zach Greinke, he may throw a fastball at 88. He might throw a changeup at 88. There's been times where he's thrown a fastball at 88 and followed up with a changeup at 89, which I guess at that point is a sinker. He calls it a changeup, and the way he throws it is like a changeup grip. But so that plays. I mean, Luis Castillo throws changeups at 92 miles an hour. Now he throws 98, 100, so there is a little bit of a speed difference there. But it's mainly the movement profile of it, and you can think of it as like the same type of thing as like a gyro slider. So if you have a fastball that comes out and you just imagine it's like a straight line, you want something that starts out on a straight line and then like deviates from that late enough where the hitter can't make a change in his swing to compensate for it. So it's like, okay, well, I want something that comes out straight and drops with gravity because that's the way to hold the fastball line the longest. If you have any sort of downward movement to it, it's going to deviate, or you're going to have to throw it on a different trajectory out of your hand. It's like a curveball. You have to like throw the curveball up so it breaks down a little bit. So you want something that basically has no component of front spin or backspin. You just want it to drop with gravity. And then you want something that moves a little bit. So it's probably, instead of the gyro slider that goes straight, the best axis for a changeup is basically with the axis pointing straight up to the sky, so the ball is completely spinning sideways. And if you can do that, then increasing the spin rate a ton makes a lot of sense because you're not going to create any lift. But if you can't quite side spin it, then it's like, okay, well, what's the balance between taking speed off, so it's in the air longer, so gravity pulls it down more, so that gives me more movement that I want. Also, if I spin the ball slower, then less Magnus force, less overall movement, so the ball's going to drop more. And if I tilt the axis down, or if I spin direction gets more towards sideways, that also gives me more like drop or less lift. It gives me more movement, perceived movement to the hitter. So those are like the three control points. And then what makes a good changeup? Well, can you do all three? If you can't do all three, can you do two of them? A lot of people can do one. They can throw it slower. People can figure that out. But it's hard to figure out how to throw it slower and spin it sideways. Or if you spin it perfectly sideways, spin it super fast. Like there's a lot of nuance and complexity with the changeup that no one talks about, because in old school baseball is like, well, you throw it slow and you pull your wrist down or whatever, and that was their changeup. Um, but it's a little bit different these days, because you have to have you have to have a pitch that's objectively good in order to get big league hitters out, because they're so prepared and they're so good. And
Yeah.
so it's just raising the level league wide.
I want to switch gears here a little and talk a little bit about the business of baseball and then some of the business ideas that you're really focused on. What has been the most surprising thing about getting into Major League Baseball and realizing, hey, this is actually a business? I mean, one of the things that you're really focused on is 1-year contracts. Maybe we can start there and end up in some of the ideas about business and how that interacts with your life. I mean, maybe even get into trades. Like in normal life, in most professions, you don't wake up one day and say, hey, you were in Cleveland, now you're going to Cincinnati.
Yeah. Um, the trades part is always interesting. I try to explain it to fans all the time and put it in terms that they would understand, which is exactly like you said. If you're working a job, like let's say you live in Cleveland and your family lives there and you have a house there, and your kids are in school. You come home every night, you cook dinner, you have a family dinner. It's just you're living your normal life. You work your 9 to 5 job. Monday morning comes around, you walk into your job and your boss says, "Hey, can I talk to you for a second?" You're like, "Yep, sure. What's going on?" You've been doing a good job. You're like not really expecting anything. And he says, "Hey, you've been traded to our California branch. Um, you have 48 hours, or you have 72 hours to report to work there. Uh, uh, good luck. Thank you for your work here." Like that's very jarring, right? 72 hours to be in California, reporting and doing your job in a new office. So now it's like, okay, well, I have to go home, and do I bring my kids with me? Do I schedule flights? How do I get my stuff there? Do I like, I gotta find it. I gotta find housing. I guess I gotta get a hotel while I'm at work. Um, so that I can find a place to live. Like, how do I travel? Like, when do I get another off day so I can bring all my stuff across country with me? Or do I do that now? And like, so all these questions happen. No one really goes through that. And then basically the next thing is the California office expects you to perform at a higher level than you were performing, because that's why they traded for you, amidst all of these different things. So trades are super jarring. The fan bases don't understand all the stuff that goes into it. I tried to make a video of what it looks like to get traded and all the things I have to think about, so fans could kind of see, like, oh wow, I never thought about that. I never thought about that. I never thought about that. So they could have some sort of understanding. But yeah, at the end of the day, it just goes back to baseball being a business, right? It's like, hey, this is the best thing for the business, and employees are, at the mercy of how the decision makers make the decisions. If they want to lay people off, well, it's like you get cut or you get released. Those are kind of the parallels. So um,
So how do
I
you
think
actually
that,
deal with this? Do you have people who you hire who maybe take care of all these things? Do you only live in temporary housing? I mean, I remember in San Francisco, there was a apartment complex across the street from the ballpark where a bunch of players lived. And presumably they had month to month, maybe day to day rent where you could get traded and you'd be right out. It'd be no problem. And then maybe the Giants actually paid for that and then you'd reimburse the Giants or something like that. Tactically, how do you deal with these things?
so if you're lucky enough to have a good agent, your agent will help do some of these things. They'll help figure out where you may live. They'll find you a hotel in the new city. They may help ship your car at different points, coordinate with the clubhouse staff of the former team to then take your car and ship it out so you can get around. 'Cause that's the other thing. Like, your car is in whatever city you're in, and you go to a new city and you're expected to live and get to the field, but you don't have your car. Um, so yeah, agents will help with it. There are rules in place by which the team reimburses players for your first 7 days of hotel. So you'll get 7 days in whatever the team hotel is in the new city that you're actually at home. So if you join the team on the road, that doesn't count to your 7 days. If you go home and it's 3 days at home and then you go on the road, you come back, you still have 4 days, and that's reimbursable. but there's not a ton of infrastructure by which to handle the um, like the family situation and the moving of the stuff. That's kind of left to the player, or I guess sometimes the player's agent would assist in that if you have a good agent. And there are some good agents out there. Certainly, there are a lot more not so good agents than there are good ones. So,
I've always wanted to ask this, but why do baseball players chew so much tobacco?
oh man, I don't know. I've never chewed tobacco. I think it's gross. I don't dip. I've never done it. Uh, but I think it's just kind of a cultural thing, like you grow up watching these guys on the screen and you just get this image of a baseball player with like a big lip of tobacco and
Yeah.
a chaw or whatever. And so young kids are like, oh, well, I'm trying to like pattern my game after my favorite player and he's got this thing and like that's the look of it. And you go to college and, um, but I think the other part of it is it's a stimulant, obviously, right? And so playing every single day, back in back in the day, you had greenies and you'd have these amphetamines that are in the clubhouse. There'd be a bowl of them, and the culture back then was like, all right, you have a day game, and you roll out of the day game at 4, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna go, have a good night with my boys. So you end up out at the bar, you end up at the club, you end up at a party, you're doing whatever you're doing, and you realize it's like 8 a.m. and you're like, oh, okay, well, I gotta go to the field at 1, so I guess I'll just keep it going, won't sleep. Or you have a night game, you go out, you got a day game the next day, you roll in having not slept and still hungover, and you're like, well, I got to get up for the game, I got to get through this. So you take some amphetamines and you go out there and you're on your greenies and you go play. That used to be it. Now obviously greenies are illegal now, and so the stimulants of choice are caffeine, energy drinks, and tobacco. That kind of people will dip and it'll give them this kind of jittery high, and the more you do it, the less stimulated you get by those doses, and then you go down the line because getting through 162 games in 182 days is can be tough, especially if you have to play every day. It's a little different for pitchers, given that I pitch every 5th day, so I have 4 days in between where I can just like zone out and relax. And but position players, I mean, they may play a 14 inning game that ends at 1 o'clock in the morning and have a noon game the next day on getaway day. It's like they got to get up for it somehow, or they sleepwalk, and you lose badly, and that's not good. So,
Who outside of the world of baseball do you admire? I mean, someone that comes to mind for me, and I don't know if you guys have a relationship, but I feel like you guys would be good friends, is Bryson DeChambeau in golf.
yeah, I've never met him. I'm trying to at some point. I'd love to just sit down and hear him talk about golf, because I think there's so much to be learned, and just hearing people who are excellent at what they do talk about what they do. Similarly, I'd love to sit down with someone like Saban or Bill Belichick, even though I'm not a huge football fan, but just hearing them talk about uh, you don't get to that level of excellence without being able to organize people and interact with people, and have a repeatable process. And like those are some of the things that I'm super interested in right now. Elon Musk is another one, just from just a visionary, a work ethic standpoint. I think his mind is fascinating. So that's kind of one outside of sports. Um, anyone who's elite, I'm a big fan of greatness. People who are elite performers in their field. So Tom Brady. I'd love to talk to Tom about just what he does, what it's like, what his process is. Um, Business leaders like Ray Dalio. I'd love to talk to Ray Dalio and just understand. Like Steve Cohen's a great example. I mean, this man's built a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar empire for himself. Like, you don't get there without being able, to be excellent in many different fields and have a lot of different really interesting attributes. So I'd love to just sit down and like get a data dump in a lot of ways. Like, how did you how did you do this?
Yeah.
I love reading books like that people have written about their successes, like Peter Thiel and um, Patrick Bet-David and Ray Dalio, like I mentioned, and some of these other guys. It's like,
What did you get from Peter Thiel?
uh, so just the way he looks at um, like the way he looks at competition, I think is a big thing. It's like um, because everyone, it's going back to something we talked about earlier. You would think that these things are true because they make kind of intuitive sense until you realize that of course they don't make sense. Like everyone thinks, oh, I'm going to get into business, I'm going to compete with these guys, and I'm going to, work my way up and stuff like that. And it's like, no, that's stupid. Why would you want to compete? A competition trap just like it, it stifles the profit, and you want to be able to get to a monopoly state. And like, oh yeah, of course. Like from a business standpoint, why would you want to compete with anyone? I don't want to have competitors. So just shaping the way you look at things of like, okay, can I escape the competition trap? Is this a monopolistic idea, or is it a service business? Like, do I really want to put all the work into it if the potential for, the growth, the valuation of the company is 10 or 20 million, or do I want to try to pick something in a different industry where the potential valuation is, 10 billion? I mean, just the way he looks at it from that, it's very rigid, it's very well defined, and I appreciate that because that's kind of how my mind works. I'm kind of, black and white. It's either this or it's that. And it's just right or wrong, if whatever the case is. There's not a whole lot of gray, gray in the middle. So I appreciated that part of, reading his work.
Yeah, there's something actually very Teal-esque about you in terms of he looks for a secret. That's what he's always looking for. He's trying to, his famous question is, what is something that you believe to be true that other people would think is crazy? And nested within that is some kind of secret, some kind of special insight that you have about the world. And yours is, one of them at least, is that there's basically all of this information out there that pitchers aren't using. And, I think that one of the ways that progress actually emerges in the world is when something goes from being not understandable to being very understandable extremely fast. Let me give you an example. Take something like Uber. I remember when I was in high school, I waited like 45 minutes for a taxi that never came, and I was pissed off. I was furious. And I called the taxi company at the time and I said, "Hey, where is my cab?" And they said, "Oh, we have no idea." And then in the snap of a finger, 2, 3 years, all of a sudden Uber's everywhere. And Uber headquarters has a direct map of where all the Ubers are, and they can merge that with some kind of heat map of where all the people who want Ubers also are. So they can look at music festivals, they can look at sporting events, they can look at places that might be particularly popular with restaurants. And then all of a sudden you go from a place where we have no idea where the cab is to, hey, we can match you, we can pair you, and we have tons of visibility
Yeah.
into
Now you
what's
pull up
going on.
your phone and you're like, oh, I see. He's right here on the map. He'll be in
Exactly.
2 minutes.
Right. And so
Yeah.
for you, we're talking about this earlier, right? Humans see it, say 30 frames per second. All of a sudden you can see it thousands of frames per second. And then what's something that is, I guess in some way we see in in 3 dimensions, but it's, for the purpose of this conversation, it's kind of 2 dimensional. And what you can do is you can pop into 3 dimensions, right? You can rotate, you can actually look at numerically what's happening in the body, see what's happening from all these different angles based on cameras. And that's actually a very Teal-esque secret that you have.
Yeah, the way I interpret that side of things, I try to look to the future and I say, okay, like I'll give a baseball example to illustrate this. If you take the best player, the best pitcher from 2000, and you put him into today's game, what does that look like? What is he? Is he good? Is he the best? Like back then, it was like Mark Pryor, right? It was Kerry Wood, it was Pedro Martinez, and it's like, okay, Mark Pryor was 94, 95. He had a good breaking ball. Probably objectively right now is, it may not be the best. Who knows? It was good. He had a huge strike zone, and he was the best. You put that, a 94, 95 starter with one breaking ball, not really a third pitch, that like didn't have the greatest command, into today's game, and he's like a 3 starter or a 4 starter. You know, maybe a bullpen guy. But the human genome didn't change. Like we didn't change as humans in the past 20 years. So the question then becomes, how do you take Mark Pryor? So Mark Pryor went from being elite 20 years ago to being, let's say, he would be an average pitcher today, but nothing changed. So how do you take the average players of today and make them like the best player of today? What's the difference between Mike Trout and your run-of-the-mill outfielder? Because humans are capable. clearly of doing what Mike Trout does, because in 20 years, if you just play this out the way it goes, it'd probably be less than 20 years, honestly, because technology just advances and accelerates. But you play this out, and it's like, okay, in 20 years, Mike Trout will be an average player, like, or would be. Mike Trout now would be an average player in 20 years. So how do you get all the average players now to be Mike Trout's ability level? Is it strength and conditioning? Is it nutrition? Is it knowledge and understanding? Is it biomechanics? Is it, and you just go down the line. And so again, it's the start point and the end point. Well, you start with your average player, and your end point is Mike Trout, and you look at, how do I close the gap between all of these different skill sets that Mike has? How do I close the gap in power? How do I close the gap in defensive ability? And let's create systems by which we can train the average player to be able to do those things, because that's where it's going. So then that creates the secret, right? It's like, oh, I can see in, right now what's going on is this thing. And so that's going to carry the next 3 to 5 years as teams figure it out, as players start to just dive into that and understand it. Well, there's these other 4 or 5 things that are going to come after that, right? Like we found out in middle 20 teens that velocity was important, because we had pitch FX and we could start measuring how fast everyone actually threw in one database where we could compare and run some regressions on it. Then we figured out that velocity itself wasn't the only thing for a fastball. You have to have movement profile. So that ushered in the pitch design era, which we're still in the super beginning of. Not all teams even have high-speed cameras. Not all teams understand pitch design and how to actually train it and stuff like that. You have teams that are actively fighting against it and refuse to let players use data like that. So we're still in the beginning stages of the pitch design. But then the next progression is like, okay, well, now you have a fastball and you have another pitch. Well, what do you do with it? How do you be consistent every day? How do you stay healthy? How do you, like, all these different things that no one is addressing directly yet, because they're still kind of on the lower hanging fruit. And so those become my secrets. I'm like, okay, I see the future. In 10 years, people will be worried about this. Let me build infrastructure to handle that, so that I'm the one that they're coming to when they start worrying about that. I did this, with the camera. I saw it, like Driveline built the infrastructure around the Edgertronic camera. And even though I was the one that introduced the camera to Driveline, they had the infrastructure to capitalize on it. And now they're known, and they've ushered in the pitch design era. And that's one of the things they're really known for. I was the one that developed a lot of that functionality, but I didn't have the infrastructure to capitalize on it personally. And so that's one of the things that I'm looking to do right now in the business world, is to create those infrastructures so that when those revolutions come along, I'm the one that's leading it, and from a public facing standpoint.
Yeah, so lots here. So let's get into business. I just want to say one thing about sort of the biomechanics of what you were talking about. One of the ideas, which I think you'll appreciate, that Bryson has, is he has, and I don't know that it would work in baseball due to just the differences in biomechanics between baseball and golf, but he's really into this idea called end range of motion. And I'll send you a video about it with him talking to his coach. So one of the things, for example, that he figured out is that he could turn his arm to a place where it just couldn't turn more left. And then he would move his wrist back. And then he ends up at a place where his arm can't go any more left. So he literally basically can't miss the ball left. And then what he's trying to do is, if you take an average golf swing, I'm just making this up now, right? You have 80 variables. One of the things that he's doing is he's trying to reduce the number of variables in his swing as much as possible, so that he gets to a place, say, ideally, where there's like 6 variables in his golf swing. And then what you can do is, when you're struggling, when you've made bogey, par, and you're a little bit frustrated 2 over in the last 3 holes, then you can go back to those variables and actually fix in real time. And so what you could think about is, I guess the baseball equivalent is, okay, so you're missing high today. What are the 3 variables that cause you to miss high? And then how do you get to a place where, I guess there'd be 3 levels. Level 1 is, how do you fix it after an at bat while you're actually on the hill? Level 2 is, okay, you have an advantage over other people where you can go into the locker room and watch videos between the second and the third inning. If, the 1, 2, 3, they're at bat and you're number 9, so you're not hitting for a little while. And then third level would be, okay, we actually have to wait till after this game. And if you can basically move up into 3-2, 2-1, then you'll end up having a big advantage.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
Great.
Do you want to make that change? Do you want to be in level 1? Now, you can have the ability to be, but do you actually want to be there? When you look at a performance mindset standpoint, Making a physical change like that is an internal focus. You are
Hmm.
focused on how your body is moving. And a lot of times it's very narrow because your body doesn't get out of whack so much. It's not like you take a golf swing and then the next one you swing the club over your head, right?
Right.
Like take a golf swing and then the next one is so slightly different that the ball slices. Um, I throw a pitch and it goes where I want it, and the next one I miss by 2 feet. But the release point, like the timing of it, is like so minutely different that you can't see it, for with the naked eye. So now you're in a very, very, very narrow internal mindset. That's choking territory. That's when you get the yips. That's when you no longer can focus on playing the game. You can't think about where you're trying to throw the ball. You can't think about some of these other things because you're so internal that your reaction time goes down. The actual efficiency of your movements goes down because the way the body has to function at high speeds like that, it's a bottom up system. Your foot hits the ground, and it's not like your brain says, okay, foot hit the ground, because you have to take the information, the foot hits the ground, that has to get transmitted to the brain. The brain has to say, okay, now stabilize the foot and send that back down. That's way too slow. So what actually happens is the muscle, the neurons and everything in the muscle at that site handle the variability there to stabilize the knee because they know that that's, you've trained yourself to do that. You can't so when you so the point of that is when you start thinking narrow internal, now you're trying to shift from a top down or to a top down system from a bottom up system, and that's where you get people that get the yips and they choke and their abilities go away. The best place to be in for a performance mindset is a very narrow external mindset where it's like, okay, I'm going to throw this pitch at 100 miles an hour to that exact spot, and that's all I'm thinking about is like that spot. Or like, I'm going to hit this ball like at a 20-degree angle, like over there, and I can see the trajectory in my head, and like that's what I'm going for. That's when you get people that are in the zone or they're locked in or those types of terms. They have no idea what's going on. They don't hear the crowd. They don't have any idea. They can't tell you why they made a decision because they weren't focused on themselves. They weren't thinking about the internal process. It was so external. They were so locked into the surroundings and interacting in those surroundings. And that's when you see the best performances. So the question then becomes, do you want to try to make changes in game or not? Now, I've fought this battle. I have the ability to make changes pitch to pitch, but it's terrible for me.
Hmm.
So basically, what I do now is I'm like, okay, well, what I have today is what I have today. How I'm moving today is how I'm moving today.
And
I
when do
got
you
to
make
figure
that
out.
decision? Is that a decision that you make when you show up at the field and you start warming up 2 hours before, or is that a decision that you make once you get on the hill and it's the
Once
top of the third?
yeah, once you're in the game. So leading up to it, I'll be like, oh, I don't feel like I'm moving well here. I need to like do this drill because I'm still warming my body up. I don't care necessarily in long toss where the ball's going or whatever like that. Once you're actually on the mound in the game, it's like I got what I got right now, and I got to figure out a way to compensate for my lack of command. Well, I don't have a feel for a slider today, so let me figure out how to make it work with the pitch I do have feel for, and stuff like that. So that's something that's very interesting to me, is the mindset of it all. So my way around that is to build such a robust system while still accomplishing the end goal that you can handle a bunch of different environments and a bunch of different movement patterns and still do that. So what that might look like is if you only ever throw off a mound and you only ever throw a fastball, when the mound digs out a little bit and is a little bit different than before, and you're asked to throw a breaking ball, your system can't handle that input, and so who knows what you're going to get as an output. You break your system. However, if you've thrown off a mound that's dug out in a whole bunch of different ways, it's tilted one way, it's tilted the other way. You've thrown up the mound, you've thrown down the mound. You've thrown a bunch of different breaking balls. You've thrown with your eyes open, your eyes closed, one eye open, one eye closed. Your left leg is super fatigued. Your right leg is super fatigued. Maybe you're super fatigued as a whole, so you throw after a workout. Maybe you're super fresh. Like now you're expanding the number of inputs that you can put into your algorithm that spit out the correct answer, which is I threw this pitch to the spot that I wanted with the metrics and the speed that I wanted, the quality that I wanted. And so that's how I approach my training is challenge, keep the end goal the same, which is always to hit a target with a specific pitch at a specific velocity and quality. But change the environment. When you look at skill development, there's like really three things you can change. You can change the environment that you're in. You can change the activity that you're doing, or you can change the system. The system would be your body. So that's partial fatigue. The activity you're doing is throwing or swinging or shooting a basketball or whatever. And then the environment is how the mound is, how, is it hot? Is it cold? Is the mound dug out or not? Are you on flat ground or whatever? And so I try to always change one of those things in my training so that I'm constantly building a much more robust system. So I don't have to think about, oh, I'm off here, I'm off there. I get off in a wider range of areas and still, and I never even notice because I'm hitting, I'll go back and look at video after the game, be like, oh, wow, like my mechanics were shit today. And I'll change them in between, but I didn't notice that they were bad in the game because I was able to accomplish the goal of what I was doing.
Yeah, so I have an idea about this, and this is actually after spending a lot of time studying Bryson. This is where I ended up. And it's an idea that I called practice analytically, perform intuitively, which is exactly what you're saying. So when you're not on the field, you're super analytical, you're looking at numbers, you're basically, you could almost think of breaking things down where you're looking at specific aspects of your performance and you're focused on those. And then you're very quantitatively driven. And then once the lights come on, you're on the mound, you are fully intuitive. And that's what you're saying here, that once you get out there, everything, all the analytical stuff goes away and you begin to just focus on what you said. I want to get a 90-mile-per-hour slider over home plate, bottom right side. It's a 2-1 count, and I want to kind of fool them with a little swing and a miss or something like that.
That's a very simple way of putting it, very easy to understand, and it encapsulates everything. Yeah. The more, I guess it brings in one of the areas that I think is most important in baseball right now, which is I consider them to be interpreters, where you can speak nerd and understand all the data, and you can distill it into a very simple message to communicate to the athlete. And you can speak nerd and you can speak athlete. Those people don't exist a ton right now, but that's like the arms race in baseball. If you can get one of those guys as a pitching coach or development coach.
You ever heard of the inner game of tennis?
Yes.
Right? Because that's all the way on the opposite end.
Right. Yeah, I read the book back in, it was the early 2010s.
It's really cool. So you got to watch the YouTube video. There's like a 10-minute YouTube video where he comes out. There's a bunch of old guys and gals, and they're just hitting, and it's just boom, hit, boom, hit, boom, hit. And isn't it interesting how like both ideas work, and they're sort of just like tools in your toolkit, right? And you want to be able to draw from this sort of very intuitive sense. And then you also want to be able to draw from the very analytical sense. Have you experimented with any of maybe Bob Rotella's ideas or something like that?
I'm not familiar with
Bob Rotella is a sports psychologist, really influential in the world of golf. And I don't know if my golf coach got this idea from him, but one of the things that I was trained to do is when I was in the heat of the action, 4x4 breathing, 4-second inhales, 4-second exhales. Do you do anything like that with breathing techniques?
I do a lot with breathing techniques. There's some good research around, after an intense workout, the people who are able to shift themselves to a parasympathetic nervous system state the quickest, get the most adaptation out of the workout. Also, from a recovery standpoint, if you can come out of the sympathetic system, like in between innings, and get into parasympathetic state, you're better off. I do it before bed to, again, like help turn my mind off and like shift my nervous system. So I actually get, when I'm consistent with my breathing routines, I see a massive uptick in my sleep quality. Stuff like during exercise, cadence breathing during cardio and stuff like that. So I have a lot of I have a very detailed like breathing routine that I go through like throughout the day, and I didn't think it. I was like, I breathe. What difference does it make? And then I did it, and I was like, wow, I just got done doing an intense workout, and I did this thing. And 3 minutes into my 20-minute breathing session, I feel like I want to go to sleep. Wow, this stuff's like really interesting. So I started buying in, and then I started applying it. I'm like, okay, I feel it. It makes intuitive sense to me now. I get it. I see the data on it. I know it works, but I didn't believe it. Now I do. So, yeah, I do quite a bit of breathing stuff.
So I want to talk about some of your business ideas for long term. And it seems like there's a couple ideas that you have, and maybe we can even use a teal framework to think about how you're going to build a billion-dollar company with whatever you do. And one has to do, I think, with sports science. The other has to do with some kind of media property. And one of the big advantages that that you have is just kick-ass distribution, where you can build up your audience through being a professional ball player. And then through that, you end up using that audience, that distribution to automatically grow whatever it is that you're building. So, what are the different ideas that you have? How do you think of them sort of from, I want to make money with this on one side of the spectrum to, I'm just really excited about this and it psychs
Yeah.
me up to make this a part of my life?
Yeah. So I care about the baseball industry tremendously because it's given me so much in my life from a life experience standpoint, financial standpoint, just a life enjoyment and relationship standpoint. I've met a ton of great people, a fantastic relationship with my parents, and a lot of that was built through baseball and going to tournaments and growing up and stuff like that. So it's something that I want to see continue and be, have that happen for a lot of other people. So I see inefficiencies. I guess that's how I've always looked at my career, because when you identify where you are and where you want to be, like you immediately see the inefficiencies and you attack them. So that's how my mindset works. So looking at baseball as an industry right now, it's like, okay, well, we got to promote the game to we got to attract a younger fan base. So how do you do that? And that's like the media side of things. And I think on the player side of things, well, if players are going to be doing media more to attract a younger fan base, well, then how do you capitalize on that, right? Like, how does that benefit each player? Because some players are motivated by money, some players by the fame, some players by life experience, some players by family, some players by charity. And so having a one size fit all where, hey, everyone do content, it's like, well, some people don't want to do that because they value other things. But if you can explain to them how doing this will allow them more experience and more enjoyment in the things that they want to do, they're a lot more likely to understand it and to do it. So you have kind of the media creations for the marketing side of baseball, and then you have an entity that helps build brands and market players and find those opportunities and stuff like that in the middle. And then you have the health and physiology and performance and analytics side of things, where right now one of the big things is like players don't have access to the same data that the teams do. So when you walk into a negotiation, teams have access to like all this huge data set where you can say, oh, well, if you look at these metrics and these metrics, you're actually trending down, so you're not worth as much as whatever. That's not good for the player. So finding ways to fix that. There's a lot of other like issues with data and all that I see going to the future. And then you have player representation, where I mentioned earlier about agencies. Like, nowadays players are valued in a way that's a computer basically spits out like, okay, this player's stats were this, he's this old, these are the trends, these are the underlying metrics, and he's worth X. And the agent walks in and says, oh, we're worth Y. And the team's like, sorry, like it's X, or, we'll find someone else that will take that. So the days of hardcore negotiating for the masses, I'll say, is pretty much gone. Players usually just accept the contracts that, that they're given. You have stories of players getting the same exact contract offer from 5 different teams, and people will scream collusion. But to me, it's just like, oh, that's what the data says. And everyone's looking at things the same way. So from a player representation standpoint, if I go play better, I get paid more money. Now my agent gets paid more money. If I play worse, I get paid less. My agent gets paid less. I'm like, how does that make any sense? Like, shouldn't the agent get paid for the work that they actually do for me? If I suck and I have to accept a deal, it's like, did you negotiate? I don't know. So I switched agencies to Luba Sports, because Rachel's model is much more aligned with like, I get paid for the work that I do, and I can then custom fit your experience with the agency to be exactly what you want, but also exactly what other players want. So that's another inefficiency that I saw. So as far as kind of escaping the the competition trap in some ways, baseball as an industry will never it'll never be um, large enough to truly have some sort of monopolistic state. I mean, MLB itself is a monopoly. They literally have an antitrust exemption, but my companies will never be that in just baseball. So I have to find a way to get outside of baseball. So it's one of the reasons that I'm excited for what Rachel's going to do with her agency, because that transcends all sports, and sports is a worldwide industry, right? So you can apply that model all over. That's why I'm excited for the media side of things with Momentum, because some of the things that we're doing in baseball, you can apply to any sport in the world. And so you start looking at that and saying, okay, there's a chance at a monopolistic state there because this is a worldwide industry. You have a commodity, you have a product that is hopefully will be unique enough that no one else can really do. Um, so you can actually get to that monopolistic state. Certainly on the data side, the health, physiology, and data side, the idea is to, if we can make the top 1% of performers in the baseball industry X% better, how valuable is that to the top, companies in the world? Hey, Apple, I can make your employees 7% better. Like, what is how many billions of dollars is that worth to them?
Yeah.
And of course business is a worldwide industry. So when I see it, I'm like, okay, well, I use baseball as a conduit to change baseball because that's what I'm really passionate about. Give players a better experience. And after I've really rolled the snowball down the hill and it's gaining steam, then I expand to other sports. Then I expand to business. Then you expand outside of the US. And like, that's kind of how I see the progression of it. And who knows if either of them will hit or any of them will hit, but that's how I see it.
Yeah, I like that. There was a study I read one time about LeBron James's what he gave the city of Cleveland. And in terms of bars and restaurants and tourism, LeBron was bringing some number that far exceeded what he was being paid. And I think that could be part of your pitch, that you're not just you're creating value that you're not capturing, in the sense that you're doing things and you get paid by the team, but you're bringing value to the city. And maybe there's an opportunity there. Cities very famously, and there's a lot of debate around this, I think for good reason, pay for stadiums to be built, right? Like a city, say, I know just that the San Francisco Giants stadium cost $310 million. And I don't know what the city paid, but say they paid $50, $100 million of that. One of the things that would be really interesting is, what does it benefit the city of Anaheim to have Mike Trout? What does it benefit Los Angeles to have LeBron James? And I know it far exceeds what they get paid. And wouldn't it be interesting if a city started also contributing to a player's salary?
I think the perfect example of that is what happened with Kobe earlier this year. I mean, you had crowds of people for 3 days standing outside of Staples Center, not knowing like what to do and just being there in the moment. How much impact does that one player, that man, had on how many people's lives in LA? I mean, I grew up in LA. I wasn't really a basketball fan, but I'm a Kobe fan. I rooted for the Lakers because of Kobe. I love the Mamba spirit. Like that was, I latched onto that, right? How much impact does that have on just the life, like even not even in a monetary sense, right? But just the life of the people that live in the city. And I think that's a fantastic point. Um, and that's something that I'm trying to actually. That's something that's actually in my free agent pitch. Is like, hey, this is the on-field value, but like, look at all this off-field value that's been brought to the city or brought to the organization. Um, I mean, I did a vlog for this season. It was releasing maybe 3 times a week, and if you scale out the number of views that we got on YouTube, if you would scale that over the course of a full season, because we only got about 2 months, but if you maintain that pace for the course of a full season, I was tracking to be at like 7.58 million views on YouTube. And I know these are different than ratings on TV, obviously. But if you look at the ratings of an organization like the Reds, for a 162 game season, they're pulling in about 8 million, views on TV or viewership numbers. So just being able to, you have one player that's got this content that's generating, everything. It's about my life playing for the Reds, right? So now you double your. I know it's not one-to-one comparison, but as a way of thinking about it, it's like now you double your viewership. You just doubled your ratings because a player carries around a $1,000 camera and puts it up on YouTube, right? How much value does that bring to the organization? It's hard to say. What are TV ratings worth? I mean, that's the area where you get the organizations make the majority of their money is from the TV deals. So there's got to be a tremendous amount of value there, and just like the way a team can inspire a city. Like I was in Cleveland when LeBron won the championship, when he came back 3-1 against the Warriors. Like I saw 1.5 or 2 million
The
people.
Iguodala block. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. I'm a
yeah,
Warrior fan and it still pains me.
yeah. I pitched on the day that the parade was, so I couldn't get to the stadium. I had to have a police escort take me all sorts of different ways around downtown Cleveland to get me into the stadium because there were so many people, and the parade was so important that like the baseball game that day didn't matter if the starting pitcher could get to the stadium or not. Um, that kind of influence is crazy when you see it. It's there. Like I know it's there, and that's what we're trying to help convince players of that it's there. Um, and that it's valuable in contract negotiations, valuable to them and stuff like that. But I mean, there's no doubt. Like you see it.
What is something, you're written about in the media all the time. What is the biggest thing about you that people miss? What is the thing that a part of your story, a part of your personality, the part of who you are that isn't being told right now?
That isn't being told, or that's being told completely wrong.
I'll take either.
Uh, isn't being told, I guess, is probably my passion for helping people. I don't think it's a very clickbaity, view-driven title or article to write. But I love helping people, and basically everything I do in baseball, while it benefits me in my career, it's with the intention of then on the back end, like implementing it into the industry and helping the next generation of players, next generation of coaches, next generation of kids, and stuff like that. Um, and it doesn't, I get talked about as being selfish. I get the reputation of being like a bad teammate, and oh, he's, all he cares about is his stats and business, and he doesn't hang out with his teammates or whatever. And the way I see it is like the future of, if I hang out with my teammates only and I don't do business, I can impact, let's say 26 people, 25 other people in a clubhouse in a year. So if you multiply that by 20 years, I can impact 400, what is it, 440 or something like that, whatever the number is, 100 people, right? Let's just call it 500 people. I can impact thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of people if I build an infrastructure and business that can help baseball players. I can impact people on other teams every year, not just my own. If I'm out there with content, if I'm, on Instagram, I get messages from players fairly frequently. It's like, hey, can you take a look at this video? What do you think? Blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, okay, there's a need for this. People are looking for information. Let me build an infrastructure. Let me automate these processes so I can help many more people than I could if I just hung out with my teammates in the clubhouse. And while in the moment, it might seem that I'm selfish, that I'm not hanging out with them, that I'm off doing business stuff, that it has the appearance of just helping me, right? Those products, those systems, that time spent will help so many people down the line. And I guess that's, I get a little bit sensitive about that because when players tell me I'm selfish or I'm not a good teammate, I'm like, dude, I'm trying to help you, and you may not see the vision, but like this is to help you. Like momentum exists not for me to like blow up myself and be a superstar in the media or like a whatever. It's I'm leading this charge strictly to like try to push the narrative forward that other players can do this. Ideally, we'd work with all of you guys. We'd create content for all of you guys, and all of you guys would get this benefit. Like that's how we want it to be structured. But someone has to be the flag bearer. Someone has to break that barrier down, and that's, I don't mind breaking barriers. I've taken the arrows in the back my entire life for different things that I've done, so I'm comfortable in that environment. And so if I can do that and help other people, like that's the motivation. But a lot of times it comes off as like, oh, Bauer's being smart with his business side of things and it's going to help him, or he's selfish because he's doing business stuff. It's not about the people that I'm trying to help.
What do you think? Your dad has always been a pitching coach for you. What do you think has made that partnership so successful in terms of your relationship, how you've thought about it? I mean, I'm sure there's been moments where it's been really tricky and difficult. There's no doubt that that's the case. And so what has allowed you to maintain that relationship and have it be both loving and productive?
My dad was really good. There's two things that go into this. He taught me from a very young age to look to the future. It's not about the now. It's about what you're trying to build for the future. Like the goal was always to play on the high school team. So if I didn't make the tournament team now, or if I didn't have the best outing today, it was like it doesn't matter because you're not in high school yet. Like are you getting better to get towards your goal? And so that took a lot of the pressure off of like the day-to-day stuff, where he was not pressuring me to like I go 0 for 3 in a game and he's yelling at me. You see that with a lot of dads, and it's like they want to push their kid and right now because like they care about their kid. They want them to be good, but a lot of times it can ruin the relationship. My dad was never pushing me in the moment. If he pushed me on anything, it was the second thing that I wanted to talk about. It was to do the work.
Hmm.
Um, it was, so we grew up. I grew up in Los Angeles area. My dad worked in New Mexico, so every Sunday night he'd fly to New Mexico, go to work Monday through Thursday, and he'd get back like Friday morning at like 3 a.m. And so the message was always, I'll support you in baseball. I'll pay for you to be on the travel team. I'll pay for lessons. I'll pay for equipment. If you do the work to get better in between. I'm not going to pay just to take the same lesson over and over and over if you're not
Mhm.
improving. And so from a very young age, I had to internalize my process. I would ride my bike up to the park that was a couple blocks away with buckets of baseballs on my handlebars and go work out on my own because I wanted the pitching lesson. And so I knew I had to go do the work so I could continue having the pitching lesson. So in that way, he never had to push me. He never had to like yell at me to like go to practice or anything like that because I'd internalized wanting to go to practice. So it was his role was always supportive and like, hey, like what if we tried this and what if we tried that? And he was a chemical engineer, so he has the same mindset that he instilled in me. Where are you? Where do you want to be? Design a process, iterate. Um, and so he was always doing that. He didn't know anything about baseball when we started, but he taught himself like he was reading books. He was trying to help his kid do well. And at the end of the day, we ended up like knowing quite a bit about something that we started off knowing nothing about. And it was that process of learning together that was really special.
Trevor Bauer, this has been a ridiculous interview. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun. Sure, we could go for a lot longer.